every week here at the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques segment at the CCA workbench.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, man. But Dave, you know what? Certainly the rigs and techniques that we do for snook fishing, I mean, there's a million ways to catch a snook.
Well, that's what's so great about them. You know, snook are all over Florida, from about Tampa all the way around the end, all the way up to about Canaveral, Daytona Beach. Even Tommy will catch some up there in Jacksonville. But, you know, almost the whole state has quite a few snook around. So, you know, it's great. It's a great fish for everybody to go after because you can catch it on bass gear, you know, the smaller ones.
You can use a lightweight spinner.
Correct. Yep, and you can catch them on the flats. You can catch them around docks at night. You can catch them on the beach. You can go out on the beach and throw stuff. There's just a ton of ways to catch them, and they're usually very good.
So if you're going to be casting the medium heavy rod with 20 to 40 pound braid,
right?
If you're going to fish a big bait like a live mullet or a ladyfish or something like that, then we'd use a big plug rod.
Correct. Well, especially, you'd also want to use a plug rod, especially when you're going to be fishing in an inlet or around a bridge, you know, with a lot of pilings and structure around it. A nice slow retrieve bait caster, a big one, is great for the jig because you want to be able to be in contact with the bottom a lot. You know, if your jig is not bouncing on the bottom or very close to the bottom, you're not going to catch a snook. And what you're going to want to do is when the tide changes, snook are very tidal. They like to have the tide moving. They like to be sitting in a place and have the tide bring the bait to them. And so that's what you got to be thinking when you're using any of these baits, is that I'm going to try to get this bait in a position that it's going to come down naturally like the rest of the bait is. So when you're casting, you cast that jig or a big spool tack, you cast it upstream, you know, up into the current, and then you stay in contact with it and you just bounce that thing and go slow at first. You know, start slow. If you're dragging that thing across the bottom, that's where you want to start. And then, you know, if he's not biting it when you're dragging it right on the bottom, start doing some little jerks on it. You know, get a little bit more erratic, you know. Otherwise, most of these paddle tails, like you were saying the other day, if a paddle tail, you just want it to swim and let its tail work. Yeah. Exactly. And when you start jerking on those paddle tails, they don't work as good. Now, with the flare hawks and the snook jigs, you know, you can, when you let those, you'll let those sweep down in the current too. But you don't have to keep as tight onto the lure because the hook is exposed. You can make a good sweeping hook set on those jigs. They have a really good hookup ratio. You're going to lose a lot of them in the bottom too, though.
But that's where the snook's laying.
If all these lures, they look beautiful, don't get used to them. If you want to catch snook, you be prepared to lose them because you know, I can't tell you how many bomber long A's at $5.99 a piece I have left in the bottom of Sebastian Inlet.
$5.99 a piece. Was that in the 90s?
Yes, exactly. Now I don't have to pay for them since then, so I don't know how much the things cost, but I know they're high.
Can sell them for a lot.
They're higher than a cat's back. So, you know, when you're throwing those things, you know, don't get used to them. And if you're fishing them correctly, you're gonna lose a lot of lures and stuff when you're fishing in those inlets and around those bridges. Now, when you get out, you know, in the flats in front of mangrove islands and stuff, all these little pogey type things, mullet little lures, topwater plugs, a chug bug, a saltwater chug bug. I'd love to see a snook eat a topwater bait. So, you know, you can go down a lot when you're fishing for those smaller sized fish. Although, you know, in places like Fort Pierce and Jupiter, inshore, you can catch 40-inch snook, you know, inshore there. And my buddy Dingo up there in Jupiter is catching 40-inch snook on the fly.
Remember this one thing, and the key is match the hatch. In the spring, in the fall, we have mullet. Fish with a mullet.
They're going to be
in the winter. There's no mullet around. The big giant shrimps, fish with shrimp.
Right.
In the heat of the summer, when there's no mullet, no shrimp, use a pinfish. Okay, guys. So if that's what you're going to use for live bait, you can't go wrong if you're matching what they're naturally eating.
Exactly. And if it looks like the stuff that they're eating in the same presentation.
Good job.